We, the P&Z Commission, called this meeting to order at 6 p.m. on March 7th, 2023. And Dave, is there anyone here that would like to speak at this time who does not have something on the agenda?
I have not received any information either at this meeting or during the week.
Okay. All right, thank you. So item number 1 on the agenda, approval of the February 7th, 2023 regular meeting minutes.
I just saw bistro, but it was spelled out correctly, but that's all I seen wrong with it.
And we're clear on that it's okay?
It's spelled out.
All right.
Correct spelling.
Good. I assume everybody's had time to look them over.
I'll make a motion to pass the February 7th, 2023 minutes.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. The motion passes. Item number 2, consideration and possible action on calling public hearings to be held on April 4th, 2023, related to a rezoning request by Cornerstone Community Church at 14740 Liberty Street, Montgomery, Texas.
Commissioners, the Cornerstone Community Church has acquired a bit of property from the southern homeowner, or property owner, Sharonda Hughes. And so the new property is single-family residential. They're asking it to be rezoned to institutional, which matches the rest of their property. And the first step in the rezoning process is to hold a public hearing. So we are calling a public hearing tonight for your next meeting, which is on April 4th.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think obviously it's important because it does get close to the Buffalo Springs residential area behind. So when we do this, let me just confirm the letter goes out to any homeowner within 200 feet.
It does. So as what the Planning and Zoning Commission does for its public hearing is it's required to publish a legal notice of the hearing in the paper, as well as send those letters to any property owners within 200 feet of the property that is requested to be rezoned. City Council also holds a public hearing, and while they don't have to send out the letters, they are required to publish notice of the hearing.
Okay. And I realize the action tonight is simply to call a public hearing. And since we're on the subject, let me just ask, I know we had talked to them when they did the original renovation, and everything that they said they would do has come to pass. Do we know, it's about 1/3 of an acre and it's right up against the existing parking lot. Do we know what their plan is to do with it, or does that come out later?
I think longer term plan is going to be to build a parking lot there, but they don't have any definite intent to do that.
I think that's what they stated when they first.
Right. They're not able to expand their existing lot into that. It just needs to stay as it is now. They did underbrush it, so they do need to, it can be open space now, but they can't expand their current parking lot, again, without going through the development process.
So during the public hearing, it will just be the citizens, if they have any concerns, showing up to say any concerns or questions during that period of time. Do we have the opportunity to ask any questions today, or are we just saying yes to the public hearing?
Today, really all we're doing is calling the public hearing, and
Okay.
then when we get to that meeting, then we're working on the report that goes to City Council. Those are the times to talk, or that's the time to talk about, okay, here's the issues that are important to the commission, and whether or not they wind up in that final report that goes to council. So tonight's action is simply to call a public hearing, and that allows us to publish notice and mail letters.
And of course, it's important at that time to also stipulate institutional as opposed to commercial. I mean, that we know there's limitations on institutional as far as noise or appearance. So that, I think, will be an important part of the communication if there is a neighbor that's concerned.
Okay, I'll make a motion to call two public hearings on April 4th, 2023 on the property purchased by Cornerstone Community Church at 14740 River Street.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. And the motion passes, no opposition. Okay, moving on to item number 3. Consideration and possible action regarding approval of replat of restricted reserve H2 of the amended plat of Buffalo Springs Shopping Center Phase 2.
Commissioners, I'm going to turn this one over to the city engineers.
As you have seen on 105, the proposed Popeyes going in, just as you're going west from Kroger, the area is under construction next to Blue Wave. In between that proposed Popeyes and the Blue Wave, a proposed Dutch Bros is coming. Right now, that reserve is currently one single reserve. So in order for Dutch Bros to be able to come, they need to add a property line to create it into 2 reserves. This has required them to do a replat since they are adding a lot, but existing utilities are already there. That doesn't change. They're matching easements to what was already there, simply just dividing it from one reserve into 2. So this does have to come to y'all for approval.
I'm sure it will work just fine. We always look at drainage, and just for our information, I went down to the Popeyes after they broke ground, and I must say they're doing an extensive amount of drainage there. I was very impressed. It's very big time. Does it flow? Does the storm drainage flow towards 105 or the other way?
So they're tying into the existing storm sewer that's already there. It's the same storm sewer that Blue Wave tied into, and it eventually goes through Kroger.
Okay.
And outfalls as part of that. It was all included in the drainage analysis. That was
Okay.
for-
So it's a way, it's on the access road behind,
Yeah.
behind,
Yeah, okay.
behind all of these.
Yes.
It flows that direction.
Yes, okay.
And that's set up correct and properly so that when the next phase of whatever goes on the other side of that street will be. Is there any type of structure guidelines or ordinances or historical value or the way it should look? I noticed that when we had AutoZone come in, there were some discussions. They put up some trees, the trees died. The way they put up their building, the metal building, where metal met brick or the design or anything, is Dutch Brothers coming up with the way they look, like regular ones that you see, and the flow of traffic, because they're very busy, they're very popular, and the same thing would apply with Popeyes. Like, has that all been, I have a lot of questions, but all I can see is just a bunch of orange and then some baby blue and white, and next to the Blue Wave, and I have to drive by it for the next, however many years.
Yeah, I think Dave's gonna jump in.
I'll take a stab at the material.
The law change.
Right, so in 2019, before 2019, the city had enacted a corridor enhancement ordinance, which was an overlay district off of the main corridors in town, where the city was able to regulate what type of building materials new construction or renovation was going to use. In 2019, in their infinite wisdom, the legislature took away any city's ability to regulate building materials. We have adopted the International Building Code, as almost every city has. If it is an allowed material in the International Building Code, they are allowed to use it. The one exception that you guys get the most experience with of anyone in the city is in a historic district. You do have the ability to regulate the materials and architectural style, but in areas that are outside of a historic district, the city has no control over what kind of materials or what the aesthetics of a building are going to look like. So with the parking, I'm now stepping on toes, but I'll say that neither of those I'm sorry, just with the traffic flow, neither of those have direct access to 105.
That's what I was, okay.
So they're both going to be using the existing driveways that are in the shopping center. Once the Discount Tire starts on the corner, just a little further toward the fire station, they are going to complete the access drive that's currently just a dead end with about 50
Yes.
feet between the road, which will greatly improve, at least for anyone who's going north out of there. They want to go to 105, then to turn right back off.
So are they, a lot of traffic's coming, there's no light there yet. I say the word
You're talking with a
yet.
developer who has interest in funding the light. The city did a signal warrant analysis, which is a fancy word for do we need a signal here? And the answer to that was yes enough to be able to do it. Now it's just a matter of funding it.
Right there by Ransoms, coming out of Ransoms, right there across from the church.
The Buffalo Springs Drive, right by the auto center.
Okay,
So,
all right.
so that'll be on the close side or on the Kroger side of Ransom's, if you will. So we did a signal warrant analysis there that said, yep, a light is justified based off what's coming in the very near future. And there is a developer talking about the large parcel behind where the Popeyes is, and they have expressed interest in funding that signal as part of their development.
Is that, can you say, is that possibly Home Depot?
That's
Yeah.
the last we heard
Okay.
was it was a Home Depot.
Yeah, there's been, we know that's been on a feasibility study for quite some time, and we're just, nothing's official, but,
Right.
so that brings me back to, and I want to touch on one thing Marion was getting at. On the drainage, yes, with whatever goes in back there, that's why we always look at that. I know McCoy's was a big drainage situation, but and that's where you all come in real handy, because we got to look ahead on that. But I just want to say I was very impressed with the drainage on Popeyes. It's very big stuff and deep, and that looks good. But more importantly, traffic flow, I think, is what we all are looking at that. And I can tell you, I go to Starbucks every Wednesday to pick up food, donated food for the food pantry at the church, at the Methodist church. By the way, that's a great operation, and if anybody wants to donate food or clothing, they have a place right out front. And it's not, the church kind of runs it, but it's also other people that are involved with it too. But the point is, I've been there a number of times when the drive-through at Starbucks does come around into the existing parking lot, and there is an issue. They live with it, but there is an issue, and I don't know if you're aware of it, that it's hard to get in and out of there when they have a lot of people on the drive-through. So I bring that up only because these two are pretty tight, and they both have drive-throughs.
Yes.
And the way Dutch Brothers is set up is that they do not have any interior space.
That's right.
It's all exterior walk-up, and so if I remember correctly, they have a dual lane drive-through for the whole way. So it's, Chick-fil-A is a big drive-through, Dutch
Yes.
Bros is an even bigger.
Yes, that would be real important. So yeah, and just mentioning it because I figure y'all are looking at that. We will get to a point like we have on all the others where we at least can look at the final plat and maybe make suggestions on.
Well, not on the site design of each of those projects, it's, you guys stop at the planning phase, basically.
Right, we don't have any
Okay.
part of that. I'll make a motion to approve the replat of restricted area H2 of Buffalo, my computer just went out. Buffalo Springs Shopping Center Phase 2.
All second.
Very good, we have a motion, we have a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. No opposition, the motion passes. Okay, item number 4, consideration and possible action regarding approval of the preliminary plat for Montgomery Bend, Section 1.
Commissioners, this is, Montgomery Bend is the Mabry tract up on the northeast side of town, right next to Terra Vista. So what's included in your packet tonight are their first 2 preliminary plats for their first 2 sections. There's a couple of things that I want to point out to y'all, since this is the first time that y'all have seen this development, really since the feasibility study that was done a while back. So there is an existing development agreement between the developer and the city that allows them to have 45-foot wide lots with a 5-foot side lot setback. The 5-foot side lot setback was added at council for a development agreement amendment. And so all of that is reflected in the preliminary plat that they have included in this packet. One condition of the side lot setback approval was that council did not want to permit any appurtenances, air conditioners, generators, anything like that to be put into the side lot setback.
Is there any ordinance about them moving anything on, all I can see is on top, I say on top of the house, but some people build certain things and put air conditioners on top or whatever. Is that something that people can do to their houses over there? Instead of it being on the ground in the back?
I don't believe it would be any type of a code violation.
Okay, it's just a
Just
question.
greater expense.
Okay. I'm just wondering where they're gonna put everything.
And that, we will have discussion on that on the last item.
Right, we'll be talking about that very topic on the last agenda item tonight.
What is it that you want us to do?
Approve the
So-
plat. Yes.
That the city council has already approved?
No, they approved the development agreement, so the city council doesn't see, they only see a final plat, they don't see the preliminary plat. You guys see both, you see both the preliminary and the final plat. The city council only sees the final plat.
And just a reminder, preliminary plat is subject to change. It's not a recorded document. It's to give an idea and clarity on how it's going to be laid out, what variances are going to be needed, which there's no more variances needed. So it'll look substantially similar to this in the final, but there's a chance that a lot line gets adjusted or something, gets tweaked between now and the final plat.
All right. I'll make a motion to approve the preliminary plat for Montgomery Bend, Section 1.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposition? No opposition, the motion passes. And right on to number 5, consideration of possible action regarding approval of the preliminary plat for Montgomery Bend, Section 2. Same wording for Section 2.
Commission, this is the same as what you just approved in the next section. These are just brought to you at the same time, and they're separate motions because they are separate sections.
And they're both 45 foot.
Correct.
Same restriction?
Yes. Yeah, the development agreement will apply to all sections of Montgomery Bend.
Okay.
So we need a similar motion.
Then I'll make a motion to approve the preliminary plat for Montgomery Bend, Section 2.
Second.
We have the motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? No opposition, the motion passes. Okay. On to the last item, number 6, consideration and possible action on a recommendation to City Council on minimum lot width, minimum lot area, and side yard setback requirements for R1 single-family residential zoning districts within the city of Montgomery.
Okay, commissioners, as you guys know, the city council and you are, don't like the idea of a variance always coming into the lot width. We've got a standard here. That standard was land development patterns, 30 years ago. So what the council has asked is for the city to look at amending its minimum lot size requirement, which also affects the lot area and the side yard setbacks. But the meat of what we're talking about is a recommendation to council on a proposed lot size or minimum lot width for the city. So a lot of the newer developments that have come in are in the 50 to 55 foot lot width range. Our current ordinance is 75. The recommendation from staff is to find the happy medium you know, you look at a 20% reduction in lot width from 75 feet, what it ultimately means is instead of 4 houses, you're going to have 5 houses. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions. I'm sure you have a lot, or just a lot of points that you want to discuss. Again, this started out as a recommendation from staff, but ultimately, that is just to get the conversation started.
So basically what this does, it shortens things down. They don't have to come in every time
Right,
and ask for 45 foot, it's already 45 foot.
right. The guidance
They can
from
put
council-
anything above 45 that they want to, and they don't have to come in and ask for variance or anything.
For 60 foot.
For
but
60.
Not,
Right.
not 45. We're
Right.
talking, you know, starting from 60. Council said, pick one, that's it. We're not going smaller, we're not going, there are some opportunities to, so lot width, especially for a developer or a home builder, it all plays into the economics of a house. And a lot of it is, you know, leads into conversations about what kind of city do you want to be? What kind of, you know, residential housing do you want to have in your city? I think that, you know, a 75-foot wide lot in today's market is an unreasonable goal to expect, you know, because again, the economics would mean that if the city felt like, hey, we want a $500,000 home, the only type of housing that we want built in that 75-foot lot would do a lot to achieve that. But at least the direction I'm, you know, or that staff has been given, and just the sense of where we, you know, feel like things are, that that's not what we're looking for. We're looking for an attainable lot size without getting down to where every neighborhood is very compact development, you know, all on top of one another.
Yes, and the market dictates a lot, and we will always have a variety. Well, personally, I don't have a problem with 60. Seems like a happy medium. I think the important thing tonight is the discussion that goes with this when we get down to the side lots and the 45s and 50s. I feel like when we talked to Pulte, there was a little bit of miscommunication, not intentional, but from both sides. And I came away thinking about the reality of the side lot. So if I don't want to get off topic, but I think it is part of this discussion. We know what the action is here that we need to take. But it's like we say to our spouse, you know, help me understand. And I think we need to have that discussion because I don't understand how you can do air conditioners to the back. Pulte had said they would get back to us about that, and the comment was, oh, we can put them to the back. But it sounded great, but I don't know how we do that, because with the narrower houses, you've got your patio back there and maybe a master bedroom window. And I don't know how you put your AC to the back.
Right, you don't have to.
Yeah.
You design a product that fits within that. So the graphic that I attached, just to kind of help us, you know, have a conversation and, you know, look at the building envelope, because this conversation, you know, the lot width and the side yards all leads down to what is the building envelope on the parcel, you know, like. And so right now we've got a 55-foot wide envelope. If we went to a 60-foot lot with 5-yard setbacks, we're down to a 50-foot wide building envelope. So we've got a very small change. We're changing the size of the lot by 20%. We're reducing the building envelope only by 10%.
Right.
So the way that a developer or a home builder rather accommodates no equipment in the side yard is either A, you can throw it in the backyard if you want, but that doesn't sound like a great solution.
Right.
What sounds like a better solution would be to design a home product that has an allowance for needing to put the air conditioners there, whether that's a small alcove, whether that's, you know, an offset in the side of the house where it fills up from building line to building line here, but the back room in the house is set back in, you know, 4 feet to accommodate, you know, a generator, pool equipment, air conditioners, and that type of thing. Because our building lines are here, you know, the intent is that you fit all of your building stuff within those building lines, not you fill up with house from building line to building line and then just put the rest of the stuff.
Exactly, it's like you said, we can't, once it's built, we can't control what side pool equipment or.
So when the city, changed to 10-foot building lines, it really wasn't as much of a need to enforce the language that's already in, and, how it happened, when it happened, I'm not sure. I think the building lines changed probably 2012 timeframe, 2010. So the way that our definition of structure currently reads, and you see that I included it in the memo there, it's the building or anything that's attached to the building. So the way that I read this ordinance now, we shouldn't allow anything in a side yard today. It was less of an issue if you had a 10-foot wide. If you put an AC in a 10-foot side yard, you still got 6 feet or so to get around the side of it. You go down to 5 foot. So when the city started permitting the 5-foot side yards, no one ever went back to look at it and say, hey, wait a minute, we shouldn't be allowing these air conditioners.
Yeah, and I'll just say one thing to complete what I was saying is simply, I think, and I'm speaking for myself, but I think we all felt good about, on the 45s, for example, when it was a 30-foot option, that was fine because it was 7.5 on both sides, and that gave you enough to play with. So I think ideally that's what we would like to see is 7.5. Or maybe there's some other way they can make, like you said, alcoves or something. But I'll just say, we've always said we want the city to have a good working relationship with good builders. And we feel the Pulte product is very good quality. It looks great. This was one little item where we had, especially when we're getting down to these smaller ones.
Right, and again, this is a point of clarity to our current, code of ordinances and the current, definitions that are in there. It's just a matter of not allowing stuff that's not a stretch to say, yeah, that shouldn't be allowed that way. And again, on a 10-foot building line, it's not that big of a deal, but you get down to 5 foot, suddenly you've got, 12, 16 inches of space between an AC and a side yard.
Well, is the 5 foot in regards to putting all from the city council standpoint, the 5 foot, is that with regards to putting all the equipment in the backyard?
The 5 foot difference you're talking
Of the side yard?
I think some on council, at least that I've spoken with, were not comfortable going down to 5 foot.
Okay.
So as a middle ground, and then once we did a little more looking, it was like, oh, hey, we shouldn't be allowing stuff in the side yards anyway, but let's articulate that so everybody knows, now the way that, we should be.
Well, I do feel 5 foot is too small.
I agree.
I mean, I know the market, what the market, we're trying to deal with that, but I don't feel people are moving out here to be on top of each other either.
Right. So to go to say a 7.5 foot building line, you're only taking your building envelope down by 5 feet. So you've got a 15%, reduction. So you still end up with a 50. Or I'm sorry. So we would end up with a 45 foot wide building envelopes, for where your house can go.
Right.
Again, that's, for the size of home that they're building. The lots are still as deep as they were, 120 feet. So again, there's more room.
But I don't feel we need to be in a hurry to pack people on top of people in our 4 square mile area.
Right. And that was a big part of, why we settled on 60-foot wide lots. If we're looking for a reduction, we can understand that and, we get behind that. But you start going down to your minimum is a 50 or 55. Well, the only thing you're going to get are 50 or 55. So touching on density and the economics of it, there's one other thought that's not directly tied to this, but with a 60-foot wide lot, I've also considered the creation of a new zoning district that would be a townhome that would allow for duplex threeplex and fourplex. We wouldn't zone any land immediately because we don't know where it's going to end up. But if a developer says, man, I just can't sell these 60-foot lots, the economics of, aren't working for me. Well, if you can build a dozen, townhomes, you can build 100 60-foot wide lots, single family homes. That helps us to create the density, which gives us the tax base that we need to fund the future repairs to the water, sewer, streets, and all the stuff that we're providing for these new neighborhoods. And it allows the developer to recoup some of the 60-foot wide lot costs by building denser for a certain amount of his development. Again, it doesn't have to be, but if someone is looking for a way to give us a better mix of housing types and to help to balance the price point of homes where all the homes in the subdivision are within $5,000 of one another. So you could move in and move into a townhome. You live there for a few years, decide to move up to the single family. You could, in theory, do it in the same city and not feel like, well, I've got to go somewhere else because we only built one thing here.
This, is this new build or new subdivision, new builders? Or does this also example Walden or anywhere that we have in the surrounding area in Montgomery? Like, would it just be, is it just all new construction that we're talking about? Are you going to, what about the property, say the person that's been there and they have 75 foot, and then all of a sudden there's two townhomes that are squeezed in between their house and somebody else's because somebody had a lot and maybe it was 100.
Well, that's their property, you can't build on that.
I'm just,
It would go through like a rezoning process
Okay.
to have to do it. And again, there's a lot of details to work out on
Yeah.
if we wanted to allow for a duplex, threeplex, fourplex type of zoning that would allow for some of those to come in. Again, you don't want to get overrun with any, one type of housing. But I think there's a way to design a framework that would allow for that. And again, still keep us a lot size of a minimum of 60 feet, which isn't as packed in as some developers would like, but it's also not a 75-foot wide lot, which we acknowledge, puts the price point in the upper end of the housing market.
and who brought this to us?
So council asked us to take action on it. I asked if I could run it through the Planning and Zoning Commission because anytime you change your zoning ordinance, that's what the process calls for.
I would like to see some sort of like study or, I don't know, something put together of like different neighborhoods or areas or master plan communities like the Woodlands or Cochran's Village in the Woodlands or Wood Forest, where it's like a community type that we can envision here in Montgomery, to look and say, okay, look at these different widths that they have. This is their code. This is how it's worked for them, so people can feel more comfortable making a decision aside from just looking at something on a piece of paper. And I feel like that's...
We're going to run into 55, like Dave is talking, we're talking about townhomes, 55 plus subdivisions where only 55 and older want to move, people that are retiring. Different demographics are coming to Montgomery, but I agree with you. Wood Forest is doing it, the Woodlands is doing it. There's different types of homes beside each other.
Yeah.
I'd like to see that because looking at this, I'm like going, ouch, that's a squeeze.
Yeah.
I absolutely don't like the 5 foot though in between.
Another thing that could help us, I think it was a couple of city council meetings ago that when Pulte did the presentation, they gave an address of where they had done these 45s, I believe, in Tomball. So if we could, I'd just like to go see sometimes the real thing. So we can get an address, if you could help us on that?
Sure.
Is a townhome, is that multifamily?
It would be like a multifamily without being able,
So it couldn't be built in a residential zoned
You're in
area?
a single family zone.
Okay, so that would eliminate
I think
that.
that's the question I was asking.
Yeah,
Is
so I think if we can
You're already
create a
seeing also how
townhome or,
to
have
split that
a,
lot.
a duplex style zoning
So we find
district,
out about this person.
you're not just giving a blank check for any multifamily at all. you're able to put some boundaries on
Right.
this. It can be multifamily in a, in a townhome or duplex type setting, but it can't be an apartment complex that's tacked on to,
It can't be a combination, some townhomes and an apartment also. It has to be,
right, not without, specifically rezoning for each one of those. So if you say, hey, I'm doing a mixed density development, I'm gonna have 2 apartment buildings, 24 townhomes and 80 single family, you would have to rezone for each of those. So,
right. So I would like to see at least 7.5 foot as a standard on
Yeah,
on the side yard setback.
Yeah,
you say 7.5?
Yeah,
I
I
think-
don't want,
I think
I
we
still
all
like
feel,
10.
yeah, we all feel that way. For the smallest ones.
Yeah.
But we want to see them all.
I don't know how many homes I've seen without the air conditioner on the side of the home. That's what I want to see.
And again, it's still be on the side of the home. You just
Yeah, but
gotta
with an
design the
enclave or
home
something like that,
to
yeah.
Accommodate, that offset.
Sometimes they stagger them, but you have to stagger the fence too. Where the problem comes is if you've got a fence coming down the middle and joining from sides, then you've got it tight.
And if you have 2 air conditioners, you have 2 storm. And a generator, because everyone wants generators now. Generators. And water softener. And the pool filter.
So is the feedback that I'm getting that you would like more time to look at this? Admittedly, it is a big conversation. It seems easy to pick one number and say we're changing that number. It can feel arbitrary in a hurry if you don't,
Yeah, I
have a
don't-
lot of discussion about it.
With the developments we've got in right now going in, I think we have a little bit of time to take our time to make the right decision, so we're not sitting back doing this again.
Right, there's, nothing on the horizon. There's the small Meadow Ridge, which is proposing 60-foot wide lots. That's on Lone Star Parkway right now. I don't know of any other residential development that would be close to, or a single-family residential, that's kind of, that's making plans right now based on something that, at least that we've talked to, so,
If something does pop up, we can always say no.
yeah.
So,
Summer, the summer wind.
So the recommendation is really not complete yet. Ultimately, that you guys are asking for more time, that definitely, I think it's worth including that you definitely like something more than a 5-foot side yard, just so council has a sense of where you guys are at the moment.
I think that's the initial reaction. It's like,
Yeah.
so,
So what I can do, let me pull together some, development ideas and stuff from different, developments and dust off some college textbooks and land design and, again, kind of help us have a conversation about what type of development we think we want, which can help us then back into, okay, what does the ordinance need to be to reflect that type of
right.
Yes.
development?
Right. And of course, the idea of this item is so that they don't have to come back all the time looking for a variance. So I think we all agree that's a good idea, but it needs more.
That just underscores how important the decision is, because we want to say, this is it. Done.
Don't even come in here.
So I would ask that you move to table it and direct staff to bring back more information. And again, I'm going to update the council on it just so they know where you guys are at on it and they understand where we are in the process. And I think as long as we're working on it, I think that
have they considered adding another residential district?
they have not heard that yet.
Oh, they haven't. Okay. Well, maybe you can mention, you can put my name on it if you want to,
One
but
of the things that I'm thinking of is, if you guys are familiar with the concept, or if you've heard the term of the missing middle when it comes to housing. We have very, very low-end housing, that's, government subsidized housing. You have very high-end housing, but where's the stuff in the middle for the normal folks who are, looking for a place to live? There's one section of our code, to add on to that, there's the notion of accessory dwelling units, which are kind of a fancy name for a garage apartment. There's one line in our city code right now that makes that illegal. So,
Could you show me where that line is, please?
yes, so you can rent a house, you can Airbnb an apartment, but you can't rent it out to somebody who wants to live there all year long under the current code. So, so a lot of cities are moving to, and there's a lot of talk in the planning world about, allowing that type of rental again, because what that does is, if there's a $400,000 home on a 60-foot lot, people say, man, that'd be, house 4 if I bought that. But if I've got a garage apartment that I can generate, $900 a month income on, then it suddenly makes that something that's, an attractive option, or at least a feasible option for someone. And again, the density with the townhome, at the end of the day, these townhomes, the reality of it is they likely won't be very much less than what the single family ones are.
Right.
But again, it does allow for some variation in the price point of homes without going full apartment, construction. So ways to help diversify our, housing market and allow people who work here to live here.
Yeah, no, I think that product type is important. Conroe's taken advantage of that, so I would like to see more diversity in terms of that. So, yeah, I think that's important that council hears that.
I'd like to make a motion to table it for more time and more information that you can give us.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. No opposition, the motion passes.
Are we through with our agenda? That's it, right?
Yes, except for commission inquiry, if anybody has anything they want to add on that.
We tabled an item last time about the sign, the Amish cheese sign. What happened? You said you were going to talk,
I
and
have not heard back from them.
it looks real good without it up there.
I sent an email with all the information, and then, gave a follow-up phone call and haven't heard
It made
back.
me really look at their little lighted sign now,
Yeah,
so it
yeah.
made me go, oh, okay, that's a nice sign.
If we talk to them, if they come back to the city, then I'll sure bring it back to you.
Right.
And to answer the question about, and Pulte's confirming that he believes that the closest, what the similar product is called the Windrow development in Hockley.
And where?
Hockley.
Okay.
So he's confirming that it's the same, but he thinks that is the closest.
As far as similar to, yeah,
Right, similar size, similar product.
on the 45s, yeah.
On the 45s, you're saying, and 5 foot on the side?
Correct.
Yeah.
But to be confirmed, but before he ended, that's the information I have so far.
So in my mind, I picture what y'all are talking about, like in Walden, you can drive through Walden and go down there and there's townhomes. You drive past those townhomes around the corner, and then there is some nice single home, and then there's some apartments that are like a little ways away. Is that what you're trying to say?
Right.
You want to go on here
Right.
instead of everyone having a house and a yard?
Yep, where you don't just have every single lot and every subdivision is exactly the same. Again, there's a lot of details to work out, but at the same time, it should be a basic framework that allows for a certain amount of that, and maybe there's a restriction that allows for, X percentage of the dwelling units in a neighborhood are able to be, more like a duplex rather than a single family, but again, a lot of options to look at.
And just one thing to remember about Wood Forest and Walden and April Sound and all these neighborhoods around here, they do not have zoning.
Yeah.
So, they're master plan communities, they're developer driven to get that mix of lot use and lot type and products from a, Johnson development, Pulte and things like that. Versus, here, we're going to be trying to create this zone, but different developers are developing within these zones in different layers. So there's, kind of get as close as we can.
Without having 100% control like a developer in the master plan community has.
Yeah, true. Good point. And thank you, Chris, for getting back to us so quickly on that. Is there a website maybe that we can go
I have an
to?
address.
Okay, I'll take it down.
The one he sent me is 17,714 Seed Drill Lane.
Seed,
Seed Drill,
Drill.
2 words, Lane, Hockley, Texas, 77447. He said they're the similar product, they might have a different brick. One's more like a hill country brick, but he said the product itself should be the same.
okay. There might be a way to see it though online. I'll see what I can find out. I mean, it's a bit of a drive. But yeah, I mean, I just like to see the reality of how they do that. Okay, appreciate that. Since we're inquiring, has there been anything else on the corner of 149 and Lone Star Parkway down from the new community center on that proposed retail strip and duplexes or whatever?
The Superior Properties,
Yeah.
I think we.
I had a call with them last week,
Yeah.
and they said they're ready to start moving forward, just in the idea of they're ready to make their escrow deposit. But we haven't seen any plans, we haven't seen any plat. Nothing concrete from them yet.
Okay, all right.
I move to adjourn.
All right.
We're ready.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Meeting adjourned. Thank you all.
Thanks.